We're calling this 36 things Jesus said to men. In the Gospels, 36 moments, 36 lines, scattered across Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that speak directly to the kind of man you're trying to be. The husband, the father, the son, the friend, the guy who's tired, but still shows up, the guy who messes up, but keeps trying. Now look, I'm not going to pretend this is going to be easy to hear. Some of these are going to hit you right in the chest. Some of them might even annoy you a little, and honestly, good, that means it's working. Because the whole point of these words was never to make you comfortable. It was to make you better. So grab your coffee, or your beer. No judgment here. Settle in. Let's start at the very beginning, with the very first thing on our list. Message number 1. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Now, at first, listen, that sounds almost backwards, doesn't it? In a world that tells men to be strong, confident, never show weakness, never admit you need help. Daquam's this teacher on a hillside saying, blessed, happy, are the poor in spirit. Here's what that actually means. And I promise you, it's not about having no money in your bank account. It's about something way deeper. It's about the guy who finally stops pretending he's got it all figured out. The guy who stops white-knuckling his way through life, acting like he doesn't need anyone. Not his wife, not his friends, not God. Poor in spirit means you've put your hands up. You've said, I don't have all the answers. And here's the twist. That's exactly the moment the door opens. Think about it this way. Have you ever met a man who thought he already knew everything? Impossible to teach him anything, right? He's closed off. But the man who says, man, I really don't know what I'm doing here. I need some guidance. That guy is teachable. That guy grows. That guy has room in his heart for something bigger than his own ego to move in. So this first message isn't an insult to your strength. It's an invitation. Put the armor down for just a second. Let yourself be human. Let yourself need something. That's not weakness, my friend. That's the doorway to everything else we're about to talk about. Message number 2. Jesus said something that still makes people uncomfortable 2,000 years later. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Meek. Now that word gets a bad rap, doesn't it? We hear meek and we picture some pushover. Some guy who lets everybody walk all over him. But that is not what this word meant at all. The original picture behind this word was actually a powerful horse. A horse strong enough to trample anything in its path, but trained. Trained to submit to the rider's hand. That's meekness. It's not weakness. It's strength, under control. You know guys like this. Maybe you've been trying to become one. The man who could snap back at his wife during an argument but chooses not to. The man who could crush a coworker in a meeting just to prove a point, but holds back because it's not necessary. That restraint. That's not softness. That is raw power, disciplined. And here's the promise attached to it. They will inherit the earth. Not the loudest guy. Not the guy throwing his weight around in every room he walks into. The guy who has learned to control his own strength. He's the one who ends up actually owning something real. A real marriage. Real friendships. A real legacy. So today, if you're the kind of man who's tempted to prove yourself with volume, with force, with dominance, this one's for you. Real strength doesn't need to announce itself. Message number 3. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Now here's one that goes against everything we've been taught since we were little boys. Don't cry. Man up. Shake it off. We learned early that mourning, grieving, feeling pain out loud, that's not what men do. We bottle it. We bury it. We go to the gym and lift heavier instead of dealing with it. But Jesus, he flips that completely. He says the man who mourns, who actually lets himself feel the weight of loss, of failure, of regret, that man is blessed. Not because pain is good, but because pain, faced honestly, is the only path to real comfort. You can't be comforted for something you refuse to admit hurts. Think about the men you know who never process anything. They just stack it up, year after year, until one day it explodes. In anger, in addiction, in a marriage falling apart. And then think about the man who allows himself to sit in his grief. Maybe even cry in front of someone he trusts. Maybe finally say out loud, I'm not okay. That man isn't weaker. He's on his way to healing. This message is God saying, it's all right to hurt. It's all right to mourn what you've lost, what you didn't get, what you wish had gone differently. Because on the other side of that honesty, is comfort, real comfort, not just a distraction, not just numbing out, actual peace. Message number 4. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Let's talk about hunger for a second. You know what real hunger feels like, right? Not, I could eat hunger. I mean the kind where your stomach is genuinely growling, where food is the only thing on your mind. Jesus is saying, that's how you should crave doing right, not a passing interest in being a decent guy, an actual hunger. Here's the thing about men and ambition. We're wired to chase something, career, money, status, that next achievement. But this verse is asking a pointed question. What are you actually hungry for? Because whatever you're starving for, that's what's going to shape the rest of your life. If all you hunger for is the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next win, you'll get full for a minute, and then you'll be hungry again. It never satisfies, but hungering for righteousness, for actually becoming a good man, an honest man, a faithful man, that's the one hunger that ends in being filled, truly filled, not just for a season, but for good. So ask yourself honestly tonight, what's your appetite chasing right now? And is it worth the meal you're going to get at the end of it? Message number 5. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Here's a hard truth for a lot of us. We want mercy for ourselves, but justice for everyone else. Somebody cuts us off in traffic. Justice. We show up late to something. Mercy, please, I had a rough day. That's just how we're built, isn't it? But this message flips the scale. It says the measure you use on other people, that is the measure that's going to be used on you. If you're a guy who holds grudges, who never lets anyone live down their mistakes, who keeps score in your marriage or your friendships, you're actually setting the standard you'll be judged by too. Now think about the guys who've shown you mercy in your life. A father who didn't hold your teenage mistakes against you forever. A friend who forgave you for something you said in anger. Doesn't that mercy feel like oxygen, like relief? That's what you get to hand out to other people too. Being merciful doesn't mean being a pushover, and it definitely doesn't mean pretending things don't matter. It means when someone messes up, you remember you've messed up too, and you extend the same grace you'd want extended to you. Message number 6. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Purity of heart. Now that's a phrase that can feel almost old-fashioned, can't it? But stick with me here, because this one is powerful, especially for men living in a world absolutely saturated with distraction, temptation, and noise pulling at your eyes and your mind every single day. Purity of heart isn't about being naive or sheltered. It's about having an undivided focus, one heart, aimed at one thing. Not a heart split 3 ways between what you want, what you should want, and what you're too ashamed to admit you want. The promise here is huge. They will see God, not just believe in God as a concept, but actually perceive Him, recognize Him. In your everyday life, a man with a cluttered, divided heart misses that. He's too busy, too distracted, too compromised to notice the sacred moments happening right in front of him. His kids laugh at the dinner table, his wife's hand reaching for his in a hard season, a quiet morning that could have been just another Tuesday but felt like a gift. Purity of heart clears the fog, and on the other side of that fog, you start seeing things you were missing the whole time. Message number 7. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Peacemaker, not peacekeeper. There's a difference, and it's a big one. A peacekeeper avoids conflict at all costs, sweeps things under the rug, says it's fine when it's absolutely not fine, just to keep the temperature down. A peacemaker does something braver. He walks into the tension. He has the hard conversation. He does the work of actually resolving something, instead of just papering over it. Think about the men you respect most. I'd bet good money they're not the guys who avoid every hard conversation. They're the guys who can sit across from someone they disagree with and actually work towards something real. In your marriage, that might mean not going to bed angry, actually finishing the conversation even when you're exhausted. At work, it might mean being the guy who steps between 2 co-workers at each other's throats and finds a way forward instead of picking a side just to be done with it. And notice the reward attached here, called sons of God, because that's exactly what God does. He doesn't paper over our mess. He does the hard work of actually reconciling with us. When you make peace instead of just avoiding conflict, you're doing something that reflects the very character of God Himself. That's not a small thing. That's an identity. Message number 8. You are the salt of the earth. Now, here's an image that would have hit differently 2,000 years ago than it does today, because back then, salt wasn't just a flavor booster. It was how you kept meat from rotting. It was a preservative. It was essential. Without it, things fell apart, spoiled, went bad. Jesus is telling the men listening to him, you are that. You are the thing that keeps things from falling apart. Your presence in your family, in your workplace, in your friend group. It's supposed to preserve something good, keep things from decaying into bitterness, dishonesty, apathy. But here's the warning tucked right into this one. Salt that's lost its flavor is good for nothing. A man who's stopped standing for anything, who's gone bland, who blends in so much he's indistinguishable from everyone else around him. He's not doing his job. He's not preserving anything. So here's a question worth sitting with tonight. In the rooms you walk into, your home, your job, your friend group, are you actually adding something? Are you the guy whose presence makes things a little more honest, a little more solid, a little less likely to fall apart? Or have you gone flavorless? It's not too late to get your saltiness back, my friend. Message number 9. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others. There's something men love to do, and it's this. Hide. Not literally, but we hide our faith, our convictions, our real selves, especially in front of other men. We'll talk about sports for 3 hours, but go quiet the second the conversation turns to anything that actually matters. Jesus says, don't do that. Don't hide your light under a basket. Let it shine. And notice, he doesn't say let your light shine so people are impressed with you. He says, let it shine so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father. The whole point isn't your reputation. It's pointing to something bigger than you. Here's what that looks like practically. It's being the guy at work who doesn't cut corners even when nobody's watching. It's being the dad who shows up to every game, even the ones on a rough week at the office. It's being willing to say out loud why you believe what you believe, instead of just nodding along so you don't make things awkward. You were never meant to blend into the shadows, brother. You were built to shine, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Let it show. Message number 10. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. This one's a little more theological, but stick with me because there's a life lesson buried in here for every man listening. A lot of guys think faith or morality or doing the right thing is about following a checklist. Show up, check the boxes, don't get caught doing anything too bad. That's it. That's the whole game. But Jesus is saying something different. He's not here to give you a longer checklist. He's here to fulfill the entire point behind the rules in the first place. And the point was never just behavior modification. It was transformation. It was becoming, from the inside out, the kind of man who doesn't need a rule book to know what love looks like. Think about the difference between a guy who's faithful to his wife because cheating is against the rules, and a guy who's faithful because he genuinely deeply loves her and can't imagine betraying that. Same outward behavior, completely different heart. One is checking a box. The other one has actually been transformed. That's what this message is inviting you into. Not a longer list of rules to follow perfectly, which, let's be honest, none of us can do anyway, but a changed heart that naturally does what's right, because it's who you've become. Message number 11. Whoever is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Ooh, this one stings a little, doesn't it? Because a lot of us think we're doing pretty well as long as we haven't actually hit anyone or committed some big crime. But Jesus goes straight for the root, straight for the heart, and says, anger itself, left to simmer, unchecked, is already a problem. Now, before you feel too attacked here, let's be clear. Anger itself isn't the sin. Even Jesus got angry, flipping over tables in the temple. The issue is what we do with it. Do we let it fester into bitterness? Do we let it turn into contempt for the people around us? Do we nurse a grudge against your brother, your dad, your buddy from high school for years, letting it poison how you see them? Here's a challenge for you. Think of one relationship right now where there's unresolved anger simmering under the surface. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's an old friend who hurt you and you never said anything. This message is a nudge, a pretty direct one, to go deal with that. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, while it's still small enough to handle. Message number 12. Go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Right on the heels of that last one, Jesus gets even more practical. He says, if you're about to go do something religious, something spiritual, something that looks good on the outside, but you know there's unresolved conflict with somebody, stop. Go fix that first, then come back. This is a gut check for a lot of us, because we love the spiritual highlight reel, going to church, saying the right prayers, posting the right things. But Jesus says, none of that means much if you're avoiding a phone call you know you need to make. If you're avoiding an apology you owe someone. If you're letting pride keep you from reaching out to your brother, your dad, your old friend. Reconciliation isn't glamorous. It's humbling. It might mean being the one to make the first move, even when you feel like you weren't entirely wrong. But here's the thing. Jesus doesn't say wait until you feel like it. He says, go now. Today, if you can. Don't let another year pass with that broken relationship just sitting there, unaddressed, while you go through the motions of everything else. Message number 13. Everyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. All right, let's talk about this one honestly, because if you're a man living in today's world with a phone in your pocket and screens everywhere you look, this one is not optional. Listening. This is essential. Jesus isn't just talking about actions here. He's talking about the heart, about where our eyes go, about what we let our minds dwell on when nobody's watching. And look, none of us are perfect on this front. We live in a culture that profits off exactly this weakness in men, that's built entire industries around exploiting it. But here's the deeper point. This isn't about shame. It's about honesty. It's about recognizing that what you feed your eyes and your mind shapes what kind of husband, what kind of father, what kind of man you become. Lust isn't just checking someone out. It's treating another human being, someone made in God's image, as an object for your own gratification. And that changes you. It hardens something in you over time. So here's a practical question for tonight. What's actually got access to your eyes right now? Your phone, your browser history. What would change if you treated every woman you encountered, in person or on a screen, with the same dignity you'd want someone to treat your own daughter, your own sister, your own mother? That's the standard being set here. High, yes, but worth pursuing. Message number 14. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. Now, before you panic, no, Jesus is not actually asking you to mutilate yourself. This is hyperbole, dramatic language meant to shock you into taking sin seriously. But the point underneath the shock value is deadly serious. Some things in your life need to be radically, decisively cut off, not just moderated. We love moderation, don't we? I'll just cut back a little. I'll just limit my screen time a bit. But some habits, some patterns, some relationships aren't asking for moderation. They're asking for amputation, a clean break. No negotiation. Think about what that might look like for you specifically. Maybe it's deleting an app entirely instead of just trying to use it less. Maybe it's cutting off contact with someone who keeps pulling you back into old patterns you've been trying to leave behind. It's not comfortable. It might genuinely feel like losing something, but Jesus says it's better to enter life with one eye than to have both eyes and lose everything that actually matters. What's the eye in your life right now that needs to go? Not managed, not minimized, gone. That's today's hard, necessary question. Message number 15. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Here's a simple one, but don't let the simplicity fool you because it's actually one of the hardest to live out consistently. Jesus is talking about integrity here, about being a man whose word actually means something. Think about how many men make promises they never intend to keep, just to get out of an awkward moment. Yeah, I'll be there. I promise he'll call you back. Definitely, we'll get that done. And then, nothing, no follow through. And over time, people learn not to trust your word at all. They start needing you to swear an oath, sign a contract, put it in writing, because your simple word alone isn't reliable. Jesus flips that. He says your character should be so solid, so consistent, that a simple yes or no from you carries the same weight as any oath. No need for elaborate promises or dramatic swearing. Just say what you mean and mean what you say. This shows up everywhere in a man's life. Telling your kid you'll be at their game and actually showing up. Telling your wife you'll handle something and actually handling it. Telling a coworker you'll finish a project by Friday and finishing it by Friday. It's not flashy, but it's the foundation everything else is built on. Message number 16. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Man, if there's one thing that keeps guys up at night, it's this. Worry. Worry about money. Worry about the future. Worry about whether you're going to be enough, provide enough, measure up to whatever standard you've set for yourself or think other people expect of you. Jesus doesn't dismiss the reality of your needs here. He actually spends the verses leading up to this talking about how God cares for the birds, clothes the flowers of the field, and asks, won't he take even better care of you? But then he lands on this practical piece of wisdom. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You don't need to borrow tomorrow's troubles and carry them today too. This is huge for men specifically, because we tend to think our worry is productive. Like, if we just worry hard enough, we'll solve the problem before it happens. But worry doesn't actually build anything. It doesn't add a single hour to your life. It just steals the peace out of today while doing nothing to fix tomorrow. So here's a practical challenge. Whatever's keeping you up tonight, is there actually an action you can take on it right now? If yes, go take it. If no, you're just carrying weight you were never asked to carry. Set it down. Tomorrow can handle itself. Message number 17. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Oh, this one's a classic gut punch, and honestly a little funny too if you picture it. This guy walking around with an entire wooden plank sticking out of his eye, lecturing his buddy about a tiny speck of dust in his. Jesus had a sense of humor, and he used it here to make a point that lands hard. Men are especially prone to this one, aren't we? We can spot every flaw in our coworker, our brother-in-law, the guy at church we don't really like, but somehow we're blind to our own stuff, our own temper, our own laziness, our own dishonesty. It's always easier to critique someone else than to look in the mirror. This message isn't saying never help someone with their blind spots. It actually says, once you've dealt with your own plank, you'll see clearly enough to help your brother with his speck. But the order matters. Self-examination first, judgment of others. Way down the list, and only after some serious humility. So tonight, instead of running through the list of everyone else's flaws, try turning that lens inward for once. What's your plank? I bet you already know. We usually do. Message number 18. Enter through the narrow gate. Small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. There's a temptation for every man to want the easy path, the shortcut, the path of least resistance. And honestly, most of life is set up to reward exactly that. The guy who cuts corners, who takes the easy money, who avoids the hard conversations, often seems to get ahead faster, at least for a while. But Jesus draws a picture here of two roads. One is wide, easy, crowded, comfortable, and it leads to destruction. The other is narrow, harder to find, and honestly, less traveled, but it leads to real life. Think about your own life for a second. The narrow road might be choosing to stay faithful to your wife when the wide road of temptation looks so much easier in the moment. It might be choosing honesty in your business dealings when cutting corners would make you more money faster. It might be choosing to actually be present with your kids instead of numbing out with screens after a long day, because presence takes effort that escape doesn't. The narrow road is never going to be the popular one. It's not supposed to be, but it's the one that actually leads somewhere worth going. Are you willing to be one of the few? Message number 19. By their fruit you will recognize them. Jesus is warning here about false teachers, sure, but there's a bigger principle buried inside this that applies directly to you as a man. Your life produces fruit, whether you like it or not, and that fruit tells the truth about you, even when your words don't. You can say all the right things. You can talk a great game about being a good husband, a good father, a good friend, but eventually the fruit shows up. Is your marriage actually healthier because of your presence in it, or more strained? Are your kids actually thriving under your leadership, or shrinking away from you? Are the people around you better off for having known you? This is a sobering one, but also a freeing one, because it means you don't have to take anyone's word for it, including your own excuses. Just look at the fruit. A good tree doesn't have to try really hard to produce good fruit. It just naturally happens because of what's going on at the roots. If the fruit in your life isn't where you want it to be, the fix isn't more effort on the surface. It's tending to the roots. Your heart, your habits, your relationship with God. What does the fruit in your life say about the roots underneath it right now? Message number 20. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Here's an image every man can appreciate, because most of us like the idea of building something. A house, a career, a legacy, something with our name on it, something solid. Jesus tells this story of two builders. One builds on rock, the storms come, and the house stands. The other builds on sand, looks the same on a sunny day, but the storms come, and it collapses completely. Here's the kicker though. Both men heard the same words. The difference wasn't in the hearing, it was in the doing. One guy actually put the teaching into practice. The other just nodded along, felt inspired for a minute, and went back to living exactly how he always had. This is worth sitting with as we go through this whole list of 36 messages honestly. It would be easy to listen to all of this, nod along, maybe feel a little inspired for the next 20 minutes, and then nothing changes. That's building on sand. The real question is what you're actually going to do differently because of what you've heard. Storms are coming for every man guaranteed. A hard season in your marriage, a crisis at work, a health scare, a loss you didn't see coming. The question isn't if the storm comes. It's whether your foundation was built out of real obedience or just good intentions that never turned into action. Message number 21. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. There's a temptation for men to think their impact has to be huge to matter. Like unless you're leading a massive ministry, running a huge company, or doing something publicly impressive, you're not really in the game. But Jesus paints a different picture here. The harvest is everywhere, all around you, and what's actually needed isn't more talent, more resources, or more platforms. It's more workers, more men willing to show up and do the work. Think about your own sphere of influence right now. Your family, your neighborhood, your co-workers, your buddies from the gym. That is your harvest field. You don't need a stage or a microphone to matter there. You just need to actually show up consistently, willing to do the unglamorous work of being present, being honest, being available. A lot of guys are waiting for some big calling, some dramatic moment before they'll take their role seriously. Meanwhile, the harvest right in front of them, their own kids, their own marriage, their own community, is sitting there needing workers. Not superheroes, just willing hands. Are you willing to be counted as one of the few workers in the harvest right in front of you, even if nobody ever claps for it? Message number 22. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. This is one of the heaviest ones on our list, and it should be, because it strips away every romanticized version of what following Jesus actually costs. This isn't a self-help slogan about leveling up. It's an invitation to die to yourself daily and pick up something that in that culture meant suffering, sacrifice, and yes, even death. For men today, self-denial looks less dramatic but no less real. It's choosing your family's needs over your own comfort after a long day at work. It's laying down your pride to apologize first, even when you don't feel like it. It's giving up the version of freedom that just means doing whatever I want for a deeper kind of freedom that comes from actually serving something bigger than yourself. And notice the word daily in there. This isn't a one-time decision you make and then coast on for the rest of your life. It's every single day waking up and choosing again to put yourself second. That's exhausting to think about, honestly. But it's also the exact opposite of the exhausted, hollowed-out feeling so many men carry around from chasing their own comfort and never finding it satisfying. What would it look like to deny yourself just one thing today for the sake of someone you love? Message number 23. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Every man has felt the pull of this question at some point, whether he's admitted it out loud or not. That late-night moment lying awake after a big win at work, thinking, why doesn't this feel like enough? Or watching a guy who seemingly has it all. The money, the title, the toys. And yet something about him seems hollow, restless, never satisfied. Jesus isn't saying ambition is bad. He's asking a piercing question about what you're trading to get there. Because it's entirely possible to win at work and lose at home. To gain a bigger house and lose your marriage in the process. To climb every ladder you set your sights on and arrive at the top only to realize you left your soul somewhere on one of the lower rungs. This message isn't anti-success. It's pro-perspective. It's asking you to zoom out for a second and check. What am I actually building my life around? And is it worth what it's costing me? There's no universal answer here, no formula. But there is a question worth asking honestly tonight. In the quiet, away from the noise of ambition and comparison, what is my soul actually worth to me? And am I trading it away? One late night at the office, one skipped dinner with the family, one compromised value at a time. Message number 24. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Here's where Jesus completely rewires how men are supposed to think about leadership. Because everything in our culture says greatness looks like being served, having people cater to you, calling the shots while everyone else does the work. Jesus flips the entire model on its head and says, greatness looks like serving. Think about the best boss you've ever had. I'd bet he wasn't the guy barking orders from behind a closed door. He was probably the guy who rolled up his sleeves alongside his team, who actually cared about your growth, who served the people under him instead of just using them. Same thing at home. The dad who's remembered fondly by his kids isn't usually the one who demanded to be served. It's the one who served his family, who showed up, who put their needs ahead of his own comfort. This is a hard pill for a lot of men, because we're taught that leadership means authority, means being in charge, means having people answer to you. Jesus says, real greatness flips that script entirely. You want to lead well, serve well. Your title doesn't make you great, your service does. Message number 25. I have come that they may have life, and have it to the full. Now here's a message that should give every man some genuine hope, especially if a lot of what we've covered so far has felt heavy, convicting, maybe even a little exhausting, because at the center of everything Jesus taught was this simple, powerful promise. He didn't come to make your life smaller, more restricted, more joyless. He came so you could actually live, fully, abundantly. A lot of men have this quiet, nagging fear that following Jesus, or really living with integrity and character at all, means giving up on actually enjoying life. Like being a good man is the boring option, and the fun, exciting life is somewhere else on the other road. But this message says the exact opposite. Real life, full life, abundant life. It's found in Him, not despite Him. Think about the freedom in that for a second. You're not chasing some restrictive rule book trying to squeeze the joy out of life. You're actually pursuing the version of life that has the most joy, the deepest connection, the realest peace built right in. The abundant life isn't found at the end of the wide road we talked about earlier. It's found walking with Jesus on the narrow one. Message number 26. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. If there's one message on this entire list that every single man needs to hear tonight, right now, whatever you're carrying, it's this one. Come to me, all who are weary. Not just the successful ones, not just the ones who have it together, all who are weary and burdened. Men carry a particular kind of weariness that we're often taught not to talk about. The weight of providing, the weight of being strong for everyone else, the weight of feeling like you can't ever really set it down, because who's going to carry it if you don't? A lot of guys have been carrying that weight so long, they've forgotten what it feels like to not be exhausted. Jesus isn't offering another task to add to your list here. He's offering rest, actual rest, not a vacation that ends and the exhaustion comes right back. A deep, soul-level rest that comes from finally letting someone else help carry the load. If you're tired tonight, genuinely, deeply tired, in a way sleep alone doesn't seem to fix, this message is for you. You were never meant to carry everything alone. That invitation is still open. Come to me. Let me give you rest. Message number 27. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Right on the heels of that last invitation, Jesus gives us a picture that would have made total sense to farmers back then and honestly still makes sense today. A yoke is the wooden beam that connects two oxen together so they can pull a load as a team instead of one animal straining alone. Jesus is saying, take my yoke. Don't try to pull the weight of your life solo anymore. Get yoked up with him, and notice what he says about himself right there. Gentle and humble in heart, not a demanding taskmaster, not someone who's going to crack the whip and push you harder than you can bear. Gentle, humble, easy to walk alongside. A lot of men picture God as this exacting, hard-to-please figure, always disappointed, always demanding more. But here, Jesus describes himself as gentle, humble, Someone you'd actually want walking next to you through the hard seasons, not someone barking orders from a distance. What would it look like tonight to actually get yoked up, instead of continuing to pull everything solo? To let someone gentle and humble share the weight, instead of trying to prove you can handle it all yourself. Message number 28. He who has ears, let him hear. This little phrase shows up again and again throughout the Gospels, almost like a bell ringing, saying, pay attention. This next part matters, and it's a fair question to ask ourselves as men, honestly. Are we actually listening? Or are we just hearing noise nodding along, while our minds are somewhere else entirely? We live in a world absolutely flooded with information. Podcasts, notifications, headlines, opinions from every direction. It's entirely possible to consume constant noise and actually hear nothing that changes you. Jesus is calling out something deeper here, a kind of listening that actually sinks in, that actually shapes how you live, not just what you know. Think about your own life for a second. How many times has your wife told you something important, and you nodded, said, yeah, I hear you, and then completely forgot because you weren't actually listening, just waiting for your turn to respond? How many sermons, books, conversations with good friends have washed right over you because your ears were open, but your heart wasn't? This message is an invitation to actually tune in, not just to God's word, but to the people around you too. Your wife, your kids, your own conscience quietly nudging you towards something you've been avoiding. He who has ears, let him actually hear. Message number 29. With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Every man has stood in front of something that felt truly impossible. A marriage that seemed beyond saving. A habit that felt unbreakable. A financial hole that seemed too deep to climb out of. A relationship with a father or a son that felt permanently broken. And in that moment, standing there, staring at the impossible, this message shows up. Jesus isn't offering some empty, feel-good platitude here. He's naming reality honestly. Yes, with man alone, this is impossible. He's not sugarcoating it, but then he adds the piece that changes everything. With God, all things are possible. That's not a promise that everything you want will magically happen exactly how you imagined. It's a promise that you're not limited to your own strength, your own resources, your own broken track record. The impossible situation you're facing right now, the one you've maybe stopped even praying about because it feels too far gone, it's not actually outside the realm of possibility. Not with God in the picture. So whatever impossible thing you've been carrying tonight, whatever you've quietly given up hope on, this message is a reminder that the story isn't over just because you've run out of your own options. Message number 30. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. Here's a paradox that takes a minute to really sink in, but once it does, it changes how you think about everything. Jesus says the man who's obsessed with protecting his own life, his own comfort, his own safety net, above all else, actually ends up losing the very thing he was trying so hard to protect. But the man willing to lay his life down, to risk it, to spend it for something bigger than himself, he actually finds real life in the process. Think about the men who play it safe their whole lives. Never take a risk on love because they might get hurt. Never step into real vulnerability with their kids because it might feel awkward. Never give generously because they might come up short themselves. On paper, they've protected everything. But often they end up with the loneliest, emptiest kind of life because they were so busy guarding it, they never actually lived it. Now think about the men who've given their lives away. To their families, to serving others, to something meaningful bigger than their own comfort. There's a fullness there, a richness, that the guy playing it safe never experiences. This message is a dare, honestly. Stop clutching so tightly to your own comfort and safety. Spend yourself on something worth losing your life for. That's where you'll actually find it. Message number 31. Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Now here's a tender one, and it's worth slowing down for. Jesus is surrounded by important adults, important conversations, important theology, and his own disciples try to shoo the children away, like they're an interruption to the real business at hand. And Jesus stops everything and says, let them come. Don't hinder them. For men, especially dads, this is a piece of gut-check, convicting encouragement. How many times have your own kids tried to come to you, tried to climb into your lap, tried to tell you something exciting after a long day, and you were too tired, too distracted, too focused on important adult things to actually stop and let them come? Jesus modeled something here that's easy to miss in the busyness of raising a family. He stopped. He made room. He didn't treat children as an interruption to his ministry. He treated them as the whole point. Your kids climbing on you, interrupting your phone scroll, wanting your attention. That's not an interruption to your life, my friend. That is your life. Don't hinder them. Message number 32. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. There's a temptation for a lot of men to think they need to clean themselves up before they're allowed to come close to God or close to anyone who might judge them honestly. Get your act together first, then show up. Fix the addiction, patch up the marriage, get the anger under control, then you're welcome at the table. Jesus flatly rejects that order of operations here. He says the whole reason he came was for the sick, the messy, the ones who know they don't have it together, not the guys pretending they're already fine. This matters so much for men specifically, because we're often terrible at admitting when we're struggling. We'd rather isolate, white-knuckle through it, and only show up once we've handled it ourselves. But this message says, you don't have to clean yourself up first. Come as you are, mess and all. That's actually who this invitation was for all along. Whatever you're hiding tonight, whatever mess you've been trying to fix quietly on your own before you'll let anyone, including God, get close to it. You don't have to wait. The doctor doesn't need you to already be well. Come now. Message number 33. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Jesus said this to his own closest friends in the garden, right before the hardest night of his life, and they still fell asleep instead of staying alert with him. There's something almost painfully relatable about that, isn't there? We all have good intentions. We all mean to stay strong, stay alert, resist temptation when it comes, but the flesh is weak. That's not an excuse. Jesus is handing you to just give in whenever you feel like it. It's an honest diagnosis of the human condition, one every man needs to hear without shame. You are going to be tempted. Your good intentions alone are not going to be enough to get you through it every time. That's exactly why watching and praying matters so much. Staying alert, staying connected to God, instead of assuming your own willpower will carry you through. Think about the areas where you've told yourself, I've got this handled, only to fall right back into the same pattern weeks later. That's the weak flesh Jesus is talking about. The solution isn't trying harder in your own strength. It's staying awake, staying in prayer, staying connected, instead of white-knuckling it alone. Message number 34. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. This message, often called the Great Commission, was handed specifically to a group of men, ordinary guys, fishermen, and tax collectors and everyday workers, and told to go change the world. Not because they were qualified, not because they had it all figured out, because they'd walked with Jesus. And now it was their turn to pass that on. Here's the challenge in this for you today. You don't have to travel to another continent to live this out. This starts at your own kitchen table, your own kids, your own friends who are watching how you live more than they're listening to what you say. Are you actually discipling anyone? Are you pouring into your own son, teaching him what it looks like to be a man of character? Are you being real with a friend who's struggling, instead of just keeping things surface level? Every man is discipling someone, whether he realizes it or not. Your kids are absorbing your example right now today, whether it's a good one or not. The question isn't whether you're making disciples, it's what kind of example you're actually passing on. Message number 35. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. After that huge commission to go and make disciples of all nations, an assignment that could easily feel overwhelming, terrifying, even Jesus doesn't leave those men to figure it out alone. He closes with this promise: I am with you, always, to the very end. There's something so steadying about that for men specifically, because we often carry this quiet belief that we're supposed to handle things on our own, ask for help, admit we're in over our heads. That doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. But this promise says you were never meant to do any of this. Your marriage, your fatherhood, your work, your struggles, completely alone. Whatever mountain you're facing tonight, whatever assignment feels too big for you, this message is a reminder that the presence promised to those first disciples is the same presence available to you right now. Not I was with you. Present tense. I am with you. Always. Message number 36. Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. We're closing this list with what might be the single most defining picture of what real manhood, real love, real sacrifice actually looks like. Jesus said this shortly before proving it with his own life. Not theoretical love. Not love as a feeling. Love as action, love as sacrifice, love that costs something real. This is the ultimate benchmark for every man listening tonight. Not how much you can accumulate, achieve, or be admired for, but how much you're willing to lay down for the people you love. Your comfort laid down for your wife's needs. Your free time laid down for your kids. Your pride laid down to make peace with a brother. Your own agenda laid down to actually serve the people God's placed in your life. Greater love has no one than this. That's the final word on this whole list, and honestly, it's the thread running through every single one of the 36 messages we've walked through together tonight. Real manhood was never about being served. It was always about laying your life down in 1,000 small ways every single day for the people you love. That's the call. That's the invitation. And it's still open to you right now tonight. So here we are. 36 messages, straight from the Gospels, straight to you. Not to guilt you, not to shame you, but to remind you of who you're actually capable of becoming. You don't have to get all 36 right tonight or even this year. Just pick one. One message that hit you harder than the rest. Sit with it. Let it change something small tomorrow morning. Because that's really all any of this ever was. An invitation, not to be perfect, just to keep becoming, one honest step at a time. Thanks for spending this time with me tonight, brother. Go be the man you were made to be.